So over the years, we've trained and assisted many QReserve site administrators, and we hear all the time, I didn't realize I could do that. So whether it's through a training session or we're just showing somebody something on a virtual call, we'll get exclamations all the time of something small that we may not have even realized was something you didn't know. So this series is a collection of these small tips and tricks that are going to help make your lives a lot easier as site admins. All right, topic number one, and I will show you these on slides as well. We'll go into a live site and I'll show you what it looks like live too. But this subject, password reset, is one that comes up fairly frequently. As an admin of your site, you may get this question quite often from your users, and so we wanted to walk through this quickly. Do you know how to handle password reset requests, and what happens when a user can't get that to work? So first of all, the first thing to know is that a password can be reset by the user themselves. So it's not something that the administrator has to do immediately. The user is able to control that themselves. So once they're logged into the QReserve site, they can scroll down to their profile. When they click on the profile, they can then scroll down and they'll see an option to change their password. When they click that themselves, it will trigger that password reset. They can handle it from their end. They'll get an email. But here's where you come in as an admin. What if the user tells you that they aren't getting the email? They can't reset their password because they're not receiving that email. So there are a few things that you can do to troubleshoot and help those users of yours. Number one, very obvious thing you might think, but it happens all the time, is ask the user to check their spam folder, because some people don't check it. And sometimes that password reset email will go there. So make sure they've checked that first. The next thing to check is to make sure that your user hasn't blocked QReserve emails. Happens mistakenly all the time, or maybe they've unsubscribed without realizing, or they did on purpose, but that will also make sure that that email doesn't get through. Make sure they're trying to log in with the same email that they use to register with QReserve. Again, happens more frequently than you would think, but perhaps they have a work email that they've used to sign up for your website, or excuse me, your QReserve site, but then they're trying to log in with their personal email, or they're checking their personal email instead of the work email that the email password reset has gone to. And then the other thing that we see happening fairly frequently with the importance of cybersecurity these days is that your company firewall might be blocking emails from us. So you want to be sure that you're checking with your IT department to see if QReserve is whitelisted and make sure that they're allowing those emails to pass through. We see that happen quite often as well. If all of those things have been checked and you still can't figure it out, contact us at QReserve. We will investigate and we can do a manual reset if we have to. So let me go and show you now in our live site. We're going to go back to our good old lab demo site that we use for our series here. And we're going to look at where your user is going to look to reset their password. So if you're trying to explain to one of your users what to do, on the left side menu here, you'll see profile. They're going to click on that to load their profile. And then they're going to scroll down. And you'll see right here, there's an option for change their password. So it's as easy as that. Direct your users to go here to do that password, and any troubleshooting can be done as I had described in the slide. All right, that's an easy one. Let's go to something else. Dashboard view settings. So this is a really interesting one, I find, because when we explain that this setting can be changed to people, it changes their lives. So if you are an admin in your site and you are an approver on certain reservations or certain resources, you'll notice on your dashboard that you'll have a list of those approvals that might be waiting, pending, maybe they're approved already, but you can still see them. Did you know that if a request has been approved by another administrator or another approver, that you can hide it showing up on your site? And this, again, comes up all the time, especially if you have a resource that's very busy, so you get a lot of reservations made on it, or if you have multiple resources that you're approvers for, your dashboard can get really cluttered with all of those requests. So do you need to see the ones that are already approved? Maybe not. Maybe that is not something that you want to see. You can actually hide those, and it's very easy. The setting is small and everybody misses it, and this is why we want to point this out today on our Q&A. So you're going to go to your dashboard, you're going to scroll down, and in the bottom right, there's a little text that says dashboard view settings, and you can expand it. It has a little arrow on it. And when you expand that, there was a toggle that you can change to toggle off, which is show approvals already approved by another person. If you toggle it off, those extra approved requests, or sorry, resources, well, requests and reservations will disappear. Cleans it up a lot. So let's go into our live site again and take a look at what that looks like. So here we are in our lab site. I'm going to go to my dashboard. And here we can see here are the pending approvals. So I've got a number of them that are here. They're yellow because they're all in pending status right now, these ones. But if I scroll down, here's that little setting right here at the bottom, hiding dashboard view settings. So I'm going to expand that, and I can toggle off show approvals already approved by another person at the bottom here. Now, these ones are still in pending, so they're not going to disappear. But if I have another user or another admin who approves that reservation, it's going to be gone from my screen and unclutter that dashboard. Now, the other thing to know is down at the bottom here, there are some other interesting settings that you can change that you might not have been aware of. You can also change how far ahead your reservations are going to show. So the default here is 7 days ahead, but I can also change it to, for example, 1 day ahead or 60 days ahead. So you can change the times too. That's going to help, again, clean that up. If you have a very busy site with a lot of approvals required, you might want to shorten up that time frame. Just going to put mine back to the way it was. You've got a couple other toggles here. You can have expanded reservation details to give more information. And the other one is to show old undecided approvals up to 1 week. So sort of stale ones that are still sitting around that nobody's approved. So use that to help clean up your dashboard. All right, let's go back to our slides. Okay, if you were on our resources Q&A last year, then you have learned all about how to do multi-edit. If you weren't on that, we do have that webinar coming up in February as a repeat, so please feel free to join that and we'll learn about multi-editing. But one thing that we hadn't touched on that can be a bit more complicated, but it's much easier to do in multi-edit is multiple edit of weekly blocks. So a weekly block, if you haven't used them, is a way to set unused or unavailable times for your resources. So for example, let's say we have a microscope that your lab's only open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. It's closed on weekends and evenings. You can use those weekly blocks to block off that time so users can't make reservations during those off-hour times. But you might find that you want to edit a number of resources and those weekly blocks. An example could be you may have summer hours and you want to be open a shorter amount of time, or maybe you're opening on weekends for a certain period of time, so you need to change that. Instead of going into every single resource one by one by one and updating it, which is going to take a very long time, you can actually do this in multi-edit. So we'll look at this live, but just to give you a summary, we're going to go into our administration tab and into resources, where you'll click on that multi-edit button on the top right. You'll then select the resources that you want to edit together, adjust that field to weekly blocks, and then you have a couple choices here. You can either edit them yourself, so just manually add in your weekly blocks and apply, or you can actually copy existing weekly blocks from another resource. So that could be even easier. So you can change the one resource to look exactly the way you want, to have the weekly blocks you want. Then go into your multi-edit and then apply that change to other resources. Nice and easy. So let's go into our site and take a look at how that is. So we're going to go back into our lab site here. I'm going to click on administration and then resources. Okay. I'm going to look at a couple of my locations. So one thing that I'll show you first is where to find out if your resource has weekly blocks. There's a couple ways you can look at it, but let's just say we're going to look at them directly. So I'm going to go into, let's see, my cell culture room, click on the reservations, and then scroll down to weekly blocks here, and then I can see what's already set up. So in this case, I'm closed on weekends. for this particular resource. And let's look at another one, and we'll just look at the difference here. Here's my clean room. And you'll see this one has no weekly blocks on it. So this one's wide open. Okay, so that's where we can just verify if we want to take a look. Now, I want to copy in the clean room to look like the cell culture room. In fact, I'm going to copy a couple of them. So we're going to go into multi-edit right here at the top right. Okay, I'm going to select my resources. Let's do these two rooms. In my field, I'm then going to choose weekly blocks. And now I need to set the value that I want to change it to. So I click on Edit Weekly Blocks, and it pops up the chart right here. I can easily just, for example, scroll down like this, add it in, or click all day, create a block, and you'll see it pops up here now. So there's my weekly block. I'm going to close this because I just want to show you how to copy from an existing resource, but I would create that and then apply to my two resources. Instead, what I'm going to do is copy from an existing resource as well, so I can show you both methods. So you'll see it right down at the bottom here, copy from existing resource, and I'm going to copy my cell culture room. So I'm going to select, and you'll see here in my value, it now shows me what that cell culture room is. So I can just verify Saturday, it's closed all day, and Sunday, it's closed all day. Perfect, that's what I want. I'm going to now apply my changes to my two resources, and we're done. So I've now just updated weekly blocks to be closed on weekends for those two instruments all at once, or those two rooms. Nice and easy. So you can see how easy this would be if you had to change all of your resources, for example, to adjust for summer hours or different hours. Nice and easy. Just select everything that you want, choose the field, and apply your new value. All right, I'll pause here quickly. Are there any questions that anybody has had on what we've looked at so far? Everyone's good? Okay, great. Let's go to our next one. All right, blocker resources. So this can be really handy, and you may not realize this even exists, but did you know that you can create a blocker resource that allows you to make one reservation that blocks multiple resources at the same time? So some use cases for this may be a room blocker. So let's say you have a room that has 5 different instruments in it. You want to be able to block off that entire room at the same time. Maybe you're a teaching lab and you have a class that's coming in. Maybe you want to perform maintenance on the entire room, so you need to block everything in the room so nobody has access to it. And an easy way to do that is to create a blocker resource that has all of those resources underneath it that will create one reservation and block everything at the same time. So it's very easy to set up. I'll show you how we're going to do that. We'll just talk about here, and then we'll go do one in our live site. So again, you're going to go into administration and resources, and then you're going to add that new resource service or event. So just click on the button in the top right. We're going to create our new reservable resource and give it a name. So for example, room 123 blocker. We'll go into that resources profile. Now you can add any other information you want there. If you have disclaimers or hours or anything like that, add those in. But in order to add the blockers, we're going to go to reservations and scroll down to blockers. And then in that blocks field, add any of those resources that we want it to block. So we can add multiple resources, as many as we need, and save that. You can also restrict that blocker resource to certain groups, just like you would with any other resource. So you may, for example, only want staff to access that blocker resource. Maybe you don't want any of your users to be able to block off the entire room at the same time. So in that case, you'll just restrict it by user group, just like you would with your other resources. And voila, then you can click on that one resource, room 123 blocker, and you've blocked off everything at the same time. So let's go into our site and show you a live creation of one. So we'll share our tab in our lab site again. So we're going to go to administration, resources. I'm going to add the resource. In class, I'll call it a meeting room, for example. We'll look at some rooms. So I'm going to call it blocker room 123. So I want this to be a reservable calendar type. So that means it has a calendar, not a requestable resource. and I don't need to inventory. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to click on add that and edit because I want to edit a few things in there. Okay, so here's our new resource. You can add any of this other information that you'd like. To make it quick today, I'll just show you the blocking part that we're talking about. So I'm going to click on reservations. And right here on the left is blockers. And then you'll see right now it's blank because I don't have anything in there, but I'm going to add a resource to block. And I'm going to say this one blocks off my cell culture room. And I want to add in the clean room. So let's say we have 2 rooms here that are going to be blocked by this resource. And I also want to restrict this only to staff. So I'm going to go to my groups, add my restriction, and I'm going to add my staff group. There we go. So I've now restricted it to staff only, and it's going to block off the 2 rooms that I specified. So let's go back into our main menu. Now, I didn't specify a category for this one, so it's just going to be under uncategorized, but you can certainly categorize this if you'd like. That's also addressed in our resources Q&A. And here we have our blocker room. So I just click reserve. We'll treat it just like any other room. Let's look at today. Maybe I'll just make a reservation for this afternoon. 1 to 2, that's fine. And we'll call it testing. Okay. So you'll see on the calendar, it just shows up as our one reservation here because we're just looking at the specific blocker room. But let's go back in here and let's look at our reservation calendar. And you'll see here, it's blocked off the cell culture room and the clean room, both at the same time. It's got my name on it if you hover over it, because I'm the user that made it. And if we block down or look down here, you'll see it's also listed under the blocker 1, 2, 3, because that's what I used to reserve. So easy as that. You can see how that will make your life a lot easier if you have to book all of the resources at the same time for a certain purpose. And then you're not chancing other people making reservations while you're trying to go through one by one and block off certain resources. So really useful for things like classroom reservations and maintenance events. Okay. Any questions about blocker resources? It's good. Lots of use groups for that one. All right, and that takes us to the end of our miscellaneous Q-tips Q&As. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes to go over any specific questions that you might have. If you'd like me to run through any of the tips that we've done here today and look at something in more depth and how it applies to your site, happy to do that. We'd also love to hear from you if you have any other suggestions. You can contact us, hello@QReserve.com. I will send out the slide deck at the end of this to all of you who have registered, so you'll have a copy of the slides. The webinar will be posted on our website, QReserve.com, under the QUniversity page. So you'll be able to see the video again, look at the slides. And in the slide deck here at the end, we've also got help resources, a link to our knowledge base, more demo videos, submitting a help ticket, or just our general email to get in touch with us at any time. So thanks again, everybody, for attending. And I will be here for the next 7, 8 minutes or so to ask or answer any questions that you might have. Okay, I think I heard someone in the chat. Just give me a second here. Okay, let's see. Does QReserve include features for organizing meetings with other people in a way that finds the common availability for all users? So if you have your users in QReserve as resources, then they will have calendars. So then you would be able to check their availability. Absolutely. So let me see. I'm not sure if I have one set up in my lab demo. I think I have a person in here. We'll go take a look. I'm going to go into administration, resources. We have them filed under people. Yep. So we do have staff under here. So if we look at, oops, sorry, that's their profile. Yes, and we have reservations enabled for these people, which means we will be able to go and look at the reservation calendar for them. And so I think they're just in here. I just didn't look at them. You say, for example, we have Tech A, Tech B, Staff 2. Yes, so absolutely you can set up people as resources in QReserve with calendars. As long as they're a reservable resource and not a requestable resource, they'll have a calendar, and then you'll be able to check availability. Excellent. Any other questions?
I had another question.
Sure.
So, regarding like QReserve's like integration with like other apps, right? Like Google Calendar, like how is that like a feature, or do you like embed it in the software?
Yes. So I don't have that on a slide, but I can show you it to you in our lab demo. So there's a couple ways that we can work with, like it's specifically Google that you work with at your organization.
Yeah.
We have Outlook too. So okay. So let me go in and look. So if I'm a user in your QReserve site, if they go to their profile and scroll down to integrations, they can connect their Google Calendar directly with your site. I have mine already connected here, but it's very easy. You can do that with Microsoft Outlook as well. You just click connect, select which calendar you would like it to connect to, and then you can push your reservations from QReserve into your calendar. So the way I have my Google Calendar set up right now is to push my reservations only into my Google Calendar so I can see mine. You can, for example, also say, I want to see all of the reservations for the clean room pushed to my calendar. So you can do that too by resource if you want. There's a few different options, and you'll see when you're connecting your calendar, you'll see that. So that's one way that an individual user can connect. We also have, let me just come over here to my calendar. Just give me a second, and then we'll just put that here. Let me share this one. Okay, so here's my Google Calendar. Is that showing? Yes. Okay, so here's my Google Calendar, and I have the Google add-in. There's an Outlook add-in and a Google one. I have the Google one added in Chrome here, and so what I can do is if I'm going to create a reservation right for my Google Calendar, you'll see down here at the bottom, there's this little fuchsia queue, and it says click more options to add QReserve resources. So if I click on more options, it's now a button right in my calendar. If I click on that, sorry, let me just log in here. I haven't logged into this today. Give that a second. I'm a member in many, many sites, so I have a lot. Your users wouldn't necessarily have that much to choose from if they're only one site. So I can scroll down to the site that I'm in. Let's say, for example, my lab demo that we are in today, and it appears here. So I can add spaces or resources from your site directly through my Google Calendar. So those are two different ways that you can integrate with your Google Calendar. For those of you who work in Microsoft Office or 365, you can also do that through Outlook. You've got an Outlook calendar add-on, which would look similar to this, except in your Outlook calendar, and your users can also connect through your site in here through their profile, as we showed. I don't use Outlook, so I don't have that, but they'll have the connect option here, and they can add in their Outlook calendar. Is that good? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, answer it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I have a question here. When staff is reservable, will their Outlook calendar show in QReserve? So you can connect the way we just looked at, which will push, but if you're making, so QReserve needs to be the sort of single source of truth if you want it to handle all of your complex rules. So you can sync the calendars together, but you'll end up making reservations through QReserve, if that makes sense. So whether you're in the Outlook add-on in your calendar and you're clicking on that add resources, it's going to sort of punt them over to your QReserve site to add them on, because we need to ensure that the rules that you've set up in your QReserve site are applying correctly. So it's done through Outlook, but in QReserve, if that makes sense. And then similarly here, if they're connected, the reservation is made in QReserve, and then it will sync up with the Outlook calendar. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you, Cindy. Cindy has added the link to the documentation here in our chat, so you're welcome to click on that too to get more information. But yes, we need to make sure that QReserve is the source of truth for everything, and is the, everything is reflecting back on that due to the rules that you would have set up. If you're trying to do it only through Outlook, then your QReserve rules won't apply. Last call for questions. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for another of our Q&A webinars. Again, we do have our Q&A resources webinar, which is a repeat from last year. Some of you were in attendance last year, but if you weren't, it will be live. I'll be presenting it again live. So I'll be here to answer questions and go through some more tips about specifically managing resources in your QReserve site. We also have in March one of our more in-depth webinars, which is advanced workflows with Snake, Snake being our scripting language that's used within QReserve. So if you are familiar with scripting in QReserve and you're already using that and you want to learn about some more advanced workflows, that will be hosted by our CTO, Brandon. That's going to be an excellent in-depth site. Both of those you can register for on our QReserve site under the QUniversity page. So we look forward to seeing everybody again in a month, and I will email shortly the slide deck. For those of you who would like to request a certificate of attendance for continuing ed hours, I'll have a link available in that email as well. You can let me know and I will send you that certificate. That'll get an email link to download your certificate there too. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.